There lived a young king who set out from his palace in search of a bride. As he rode through a small town one evening, 3 friends sat under a tree and watched him pass. The eldest, proud of her beauty, said, "Oh, the king is so handsome. If he marries me, I will always wear the finest attires so he admires me every day." The middle one, who loved to joke, said, "Me, I will walk around the village every day to pepper all of you." The youngest girl, blue eyes, calm smile, looked at the king once and said, "If he marries me, I will give him 2 daughters with hair of gold." A palace guard heard everything and told the king that evening. The king laughed at the first 2, then grew thoughtful at the last. He sent for the quiet girl. Her name was Aya. He met her, spoke softly with her, and married her soon after. The kingdom danced for 7 days. But she carried a secret in her heart, one she had never spoken aloud. She had not been like other women. She was born of the river, a spirit who once lived beneath the waters with her kind. Long ago, she had come ashore, choosing to live among humans. She loved their ways, their laughter, their cooking fires, and dances at moonlight. Time moved. Aya grew heavy with child. The king loved her and often placed his hand on her belly, whispering, "Come, my children." But not every smile in the village was a true smile. There also lived an old witch, famous for her silver teeth. She had a daughter she had been silently training to become queen. When the king chose Aya instead, bitterness grew in the witch's heart. One harvest season, the king traveled to a faraway kingdom for business transactions. On the 9th month, just before dawn, Queen Aya gave birth to 2 beautiful girls. The midwife gasped. The babies had hair that shone like new brass in sunlight, gold, exactly as their mother had spoken at the market. The cries of the twins filled the room like flutes. The palace women danced and praised. The witch did not dance. Her eyes burned cold. When no one was watching, the old witch slipped into the queen's room with a small calabash. She swapped the babies for 2 small goats and carried the real twins away, silent as the wind. Before anyone could raise an alarm, she buried the girls in the soft earth on both sides of the village river, one to the left, one to the right, and smoothed the soil with her palm. She wiped her hands and smiled. By afternoon, a messenger on horseback took a letter to the king. The letter said, "The queen has given birth to 2 goats." Furious, he sent back the messenger saying, "Let the queen and the goats be thrown into the great river." The order was carried out. Just as they were about to be thrown into the river, the queen cried out, "My children are alive. Only truth can judge me." Then she was pushed in. The river opened its mouth and swallowed Aya. The palace shook with fear. Days turned, then weeks. Where the twins had been buried, 2 palm shoots broke the ground. They grew fast, faster than any palm the gardeners had seen. In one season, each became a tall palm with fronds that shone like polished brass. When the wind blew, the leaves whispered like children laughing. People came to look. The king returned from his travel and found peace there. He did not know why. The breeze felt like a child's hand on his cheek. He sat there every evening, quiet. The old witch watched from a distance. Her daughter, Pom Pom, had become queen in Aya's place. But whenever the king relaxed under those palms, something in the old witch's face tightened. One night, the old witch spoke to her daughter. "Tell the king the palms disturb your dreams. Tell him to cut them down." Pom Pom begged until the king agreed. The next day, men cut the palms and the trunks were carried to the carpenter. The old woman gathered the small branches and twigs, ordered them burnt, and clapped her hands when the fire rose. No one noticed the palace goat sleep near the ashes and chew 2 small twigs that had not fully burnt. Days passed. The goat grew round and gave birth to 2 kids, small bright creatures with streaks of gold in their hair. Children clapped and sang. Palace women said, "See wonder." She pressed her daughter again. "Tell you are ill. Say the only medicine is goat meat. Tell the king to unalive those kids." Pom-Pom held her head and moaned. The king, frightened, agreed. The kids were taken away for the kitchen. The old woman added one more order. "Wash everything in the stream. Leave no trace." The cook obeyed. But as the inner parts were rinsed in the water, 2 tiny pieces slipped away and floated downstream. The stream carried them into the big river. There, they flashed in the sun and turned into 2 small goldfish. 18 seasons passed since Queen Naya was swallowed by the river. One morning before sunrise, a fisherman set his net on the river and sang a short song to keep fear away. When he pulled, the net felt heavier than fish. Inside the net, 2 goldfish slapped the mesh. The fisherman knelt, hands shaking. Standing where the net lay were 2 tall, beautiful girls, about 18 years old, with hair like sunlight on brass. Their eyes were blue. The taller one spoke gently. "Baba, do not fear. You have done a good thing. Take us to the king. We will speak for you, and you will be rewarded." The fisherman's mouth was dry. He nodded. They walked toward the palace together. The palace guard stared when the fisherman arrived with 2 strangers whose hair glowed in the morning light. By the time they reached the courtyard, the king looked at the girls and felt something move in his chest. He did not know them, yet he knew them. The older girl bowed. "My king," she said, "we are travelers with a poem for your ears and a matter for your heart." The king loved words well spoken. He nodded. "Say your poem." The girls stood side by side, voices steady. 2 trees grew where truth was buried. Their shade cooled a father's head. Their trunks were cut and burnt. The fire rose, the twigs were spared. A goat found life in what remained. 2 little kids with hair of gold were taken and the stream was stained. The river kept the story safe. 2 flashes turned to fish of light. 18 seasons rolled like drums until we walked back into sight. My king, look and see. The daughters you lost have found their way. Your queen still lives in river's hold. Bring drums and nets. Bring her today. Silence held the courtyard, then broke like a god. Women covered their mouths. Men looked at one another. The old witch stepped forward quickly, leaning on her stick. "Empty play," she snapped. "These are tricksters with wet tongues. Send them away before they shame this palace." The king raised a hand. His eyes did not leave the girls. "Mother-in-law, this matter is mine." He went down the steps and stood close enough to see that the girl's eyes were the color of his wife's eyes when she laughed. "Guards," the king said, voice low but firm, "call the river men. Bring nets. Beat the drums that wake spirits. We go to the river now." At the river bank, drummers formed a half circle and began a slow rhythm. The fishermen cast their biggest net. The girl stood at the edge and spoke in a tongue no one understood. The water bulged, and inside the net was the queen, now a great shining fish, drawn by her daughters' voices. Before the crowd's eyes, she shimmered back into her human form. The king asked for forgiveness and reunited with his family, while the old witch and her daughter were banished into the wild forest, never to return. The king and his queen, with his 2 beautiful daughters, lived happily ever after.